Hey guys, we are back updating the power rankings for The Amazing Race 35 following episode 7. And I found this to be a mostly straightforward episode, nothing too crazy in terms of the actual outcome, though we'll get into that more in a moment. But there are 8 teams to talk about, and as always, no more time, let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 8, we have the boots from this week, and here we have Andrea and Molen. And this isn't too shocking. They've been pretty consistently in the back of the pack for a lot of the race, and I found them to be a mostly mediocre team. And obviously this leg goes about as terribly for them as possible, where they did okay at the start of the leg being in 6th place, though they very quickly fall into last place, being way behind the other teams. And it got to the point where they got so far behind to where they couldn't even make it to the second roadblock, where Phil just literally comes to them and tells them that all the other teams had checked in. Again, pretty bad leg for them there. And again, in general, they weren't that good of a team. I didn't really have too much faith in them, but they did make it a bit further than I expected, so take that for what you will. But they are out of the race now, which is why they're here at number 8. And with that, there are 7 teams left in the race to talk about, and as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win the race. But at number 7, we have a team that was second to last in this leg, and here we have Joel and Garrett. And I feel like this was another pretty bad leg for them, where they actually started off in a decent position, being in 3rd place. They were even on the first ferry that went over to the first roadblock, but it's really after that first roadblock that they really fall behind, falling all the way to second to last, and they kind of just remain there for the rest of the leg. And they kind of get lucky that Andrea and Molen end up flopping so bad to where they end up being safe. Whereas I feel like had it been a bit more competitive, I felt like they probably could have been in some danger there. But obviously, with Andrea and Molen being so far behind, they ended up being safe here. And again, I find them to be a mostly high variance team, where we saw them fall right back down to the back of the pack after being in a solid spot at the beginning of the leg. So I feel like it's for that reason that I had them here at number 7. Now moving on to number 6, and we have another team that I'm kind of underwhelmed by this point, and here we have Morgan and Lena. And again, we're just continuing with the finish order for this leg, where they are in 6th place by the end of it. Again, despite being in the middle of the pack at the beginning in 4th place, being part of the first ferry, and they were even the first team to complete the first roadblock, figuring out the math there pretty quickly. But again, they fall behind pretty quickly, falling to 6th place, where they pretty much remain for the rest of the leg. On the whole, it's a pretty mediocre leg, and plus I feel like compared to the other teams, I just don't have as much faith in them in terms of them being a team. But again, they did do better than Joel and Garrett, which is why they're here at number 6. Now moving on to number 5, and this is actually a team that did better on the leg compared to last time, and here we have Robin and Chelsea, who again, I feel like they're a mostly high variance team where they are prone to just suddenly jumping in towards the front of the pack. And we very much saw that here, where they were technically last place at the start of the leg. And they were one of the last teams to start the roadblock, obviously due to them being on a later ferry. But then after that, we really see them catch up, jumping all the way to 2nd place by the time they get to the carnival. They even get to 1st place at one point, but then they fall back to 2nd, and they do remain in 2nd for the rest of the leg. But still, the fact that they managed to go from last place at the start of the leg to 2nd place at the end of it is pretty impressive, but I think it's also indicative of their overall track record, where I feel like they are a mostly high variance team. So I can't have them at the top of the pack because of that, as they've shown to be a very up and down team. But again, they are on an upswing right now, which is why they're here at number 5. Now moving on to number 4, and this is a team that had previously been a front runner, and while they are still catching up, you can very much tell that they're still struggling. And here we have Steve and Annalie. And obviously, the whole U-turn situation really affected their placement on the last leg, where they were in 7th place at the start of the leg, though they are able to catch up to a degree by the time of the first roadblock, getting to 2nd place by the end of the first roadblock. Though they do fall to 5th place by the time of the carnival, and they do remain there for the rest of the leg. Again, not a great leg overall, and they are still trying to get back to where they were before. But again, I feel like I just have a bit more faith in them compared to these other teams who I find a bit more high variance, which is why I had them here at number 4. Now moving on to number 3, and we actually have the winners of the leg, and here we have Greg and John, who actually have an interesting position here, winning their 2nd leg in a row. Though they did get out to a rough start, they did end up in 5th place during the first roadblock due to them not being on the first ferry and getting lost on the way there. But after that, they're able to jump all the way back to 1st place, and they essentially remain there for the rest of the leg, again, sort of being in the front of the pack, which I find pretty impressive there. I don't doubt that they have longevity, and they are probably one of the better teams in general. But again, I still worry that there's going to be this team, sort of like Ryan and Dusty, that eventually get a bit too far in front. And plus, I feel like they're pretty prone to making mistakes to where I could see them slipping up by the end of the race. But I still expect them to be front runners going forward, which is why I had them here at number 3. Now moving on to number 2, and we have a team kind of similar to Greg and John, but I feel like the edit has been propping them up more. And here we have Rob and Corey. And again, I feel like my view of them hasn't changed too much here. Again, this leg itself wasn't too great, where they started off in second place, sort of similar to Greg and John in the front of the pack, though they do end up falling behind due to them not being on the first ferry, falling to 6th place. But they are able to recover. They're able to jump to 4th place by the carnival, and they're able to remain there for the rest of the leg. They do get ahead to 3rd place at the start of the detour, but fall back down to 4th by the end of the second detour, and then obviously they get a 4th place finish. Again, not great statistically in terms of the leg, but I find them to be in a similar mold to Greg and John, and I expect them to still be one of the better teams overall. They're still a team that I expect to probably make the end game, but still a team that I expect to fall short by the end of it, which is why they're here at number 2. And now at number 1, the team that I believe is the most likely to win the Amazing Race 35 is still Todd and Ashley. Now, I know I've been getting some flack for my view of them, where obviously they're not the best team statistically across the season, but I still get this feeling based off the edit that they're probably going to prevail over these more physical teams by the end of it. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll own that. But I still feel like in terms of the performance, they're still not that bad of a team, where even though they do start off the leg in 5th place, they are able to remain within the top 4 for most of it. They're even able to be part of that first group for the roadblock, though they do fall behind to a degree, but they're still able to remain in a good spot. They're able to be in 3rd place for most of the leg, and obviously they get a 3rd place finish by the end of it. So even then, they're still not that bad of a team, and I find them at least more consistent than teams like Morgan and Lena or Joel and Garrett, but I still feel like they're probably going to be one of the main characters of the season. And considering that teams like Greg and John and Rob and Corey have been shown to be making mistakes at points, it wouldn't shock me if Todd and Ashley still slipped by the end of it. So I feel like it's for those reasons that I still have a lot of faith in Todd and Ashley to actually win, even though Rob and Corey and Greg and John are probably better teams overall than them, which is why they're here at number 1. And there we go, that will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, really helps out with the channel. And I'll be back again next week to update the power rankings again, so you can stay tuned for that. I'm covering Survivor 45 as well as Survivor UK, so you can expect weekly power rankings of those shows. I am on Patreon now, so if you want to consider supporting the channel, you can do so by clicking the link in the description. And if you haven't already, you can also join the Discord server by also clicking the link in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that's the video. See ya.